Hey, Amy,
Yeah, Juan.
give me that beat.
It's Baseball Shangri-La with Amy Cuevas and Juan Ramirez.
What's up, party people? She is Amy Cuevas, and I am Juan Ramirez, and you are watching another episode of Baseball Shangri-La. Let's get the business out of the way. If you're listening to us on the podcast, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Write us a review, rate us, help us spread the word. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us some comments. We love interacting with you guys. And make sure you're following us on social media at on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, Threads, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. And once again, a big thank you to the homies at Campeon Club for giving us the merch. If you guys like the shirts, you know what? Make sure you follow us on social media, because there's a better picture of the shirt than me lifting up my shirt and trying to show it off.
It's trying to flash people on YouTube. It just, be happy you're listening to the podcast, audio people.
Amy's a little grossed out. She threw up in her mouth just a little bit. I always see the fear in her eyes, and she's like, "Oh my God, is he going to lift up his shirt? Am I going to
see? Is the shirt coming all the way up?
It's a total eclipse right now that's happening. So, bright light, bright light, bright light. Let's start the show the way we always start the show. Real quick. Yes, the homies at Campeon Club, check them out on Instagram. You'll get a better view of their merch. They are big supporters of the show, so we can't thank them enough. Want to make sure we give them a shout out. But let's start the show the way we always start the show. Amy, do we have any base running blunders since we were last together?
Oh, I don't think so. I think we can keep our record intact. What are we at? 3, 4? I think.
Yeah,
4?
because I don't count the Dave Bautista wrestling debate as an error.
That was not an error. That was me acknowledging that you guys have opened my eyes. So thank you.
Great. We do have an update. So let's go to the update desk. This is the portion where we like to go back and update stories that we've covered in past episodes. And this is a story that we knew was going to be ongoing. Amy, what do you have with us in regards to the gondola? And for those who are watching us for the very first time and don't know what we're talking about in terms of the gondola, this is the proposed gondola that is going to be built, that's supposed to be taking all us Dodger fans, from Union Station into Dodger Stadium. Amy, what do we have to report on this gondola situation?
So there will be on Friday, March 22nd at 10 a.m., Council District 1 has a motion to place a hold on the LA Art Gondola project, and that is the one that's in conjunction with Frank McCourt. They are proposing to do a comprehensive objective transit access study for Dodger Stadium, and this is going straight to the full city council. So they're going to be open for public comment. If this goes through, the project would pause until the study is completed. And just for perspective, the last study was done in 1990. So a lot of changes have happened since 1990 to now. So the fact that a lot of people are pushing for this study, because they're saying a basic study should have been done prior to the Metro even considering this gondola project. So the fact that one hasn't been done in, help me with the math, Juan, 34 years? It's a little troubling that this is going through as far as it has, with the fact that there hasn't been something, and this is going to impact the community. People are potentially going to have these huge towers built in their front yard. It would also impact the parks, the natural historic view of LA. So there's a lot going into this.
You know, one of the things that I think really sucks about this, Amy, because to me, it's common sense. And I know a lot of people had said, look, this survey should have been done a long time. This study should have been done long before we've gotten to this point in terms of voting on this gondola. But what sucks for me is this is now being viewed as a tactic to try to delay the project, when yes, I guess you could say it is a tactic to delay the project. But at the same time, it's like, no, this should have been done way before where we're at right now. And the other thing I'm realizing right now, Amy, is I wish we could have updated this or relayed this information to you guys a little bit earlier, because especially if you live in that district, because by the time this episode is released, the hearing will have already taken place. But I think what happens is if you live in that district, if you could have attended the hearing, you could make a public statement. And I think that's the important thing, that these people who sit on the council, they need to hear from their constituents. They need to hear, because I hate, I don't want to be cynical, but it's like if they hear from people that it's going to cost them votes and they don't want this, I think it makes a stronger impression if you do it in person, so you could attend the hearing and make a public comment. I think you get, like, 1 minute, and it's just, like, go out there and just say why you don't want it, but in this case, support the study, which is, to me, very logical, but also, if you can't attend these hearings, they give you an option where you can phone in, and you can make your public comment over the phone. You record a voicemail and stuff like that. That being said, if you are one of these people that lives in these districts of these council people, please make sure that you're contacting your council member and you're urging them, you know, to support whatever is necessary to 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 give this gondola a fair look, because it does seem that the people that are behind this gondola, they're trying to rush this as quickly as possible, because they have a race up against the clock, because they want this thing up for the Olympics in 2028.
And part of this study that they're trying to do for the comprehensive objective transit access has to do with the fact that nobody's looked at since 1990 what the impact is to this neighborhood, but we looked at some of the 31 conditions that were part of this, which included, if you go back and listen to previous episodes, things like making sure they have enough money to dismantle this if it doesn't get built. But part of that is also, if it doesn't get built on time for the Olympics, they need to provide buses for transit for the Olympics, which many people for this are arguing. Why would you just not put the money that you're going to put into a gondola that does not really make sense, not only for the residents, but for transit into Dodger Stadium? It's not going to cut down on the ingress and egress. People still have to drive there. But if you just beef up the Dodger Stadium Express, work on getting those even more environmentally friendly than they already are, pour the money into that instead of what we're doing to that the community is already up in arms. So what we'll do, if you guys are listening to this, like Juan said, by the time this posts, the vote will have already happened, but we'll make sure that we schedule a reminder in the morning about not only this episode dropping, but hey, just a heads up, there is a meeting at 10 a.m. So we'll make sure that we have that done in the morning. So if any of you are listening and you're like, dang, you guys could have taken advantage of this a little bit better, we'll make sure we get a message in the morning, first thing. So notifying you guys that this episode is going to drop in the past, in the future. We're back to futuring it right now, but we'll also have a message in the morning too.
I love when you're thinking on your feet there, Amy. You're just like, I have a solution to this. I have it. So
Well,
you're a
hey, I
problem
wouldn't have
solver.
thought about it unless you brought it up. So look at us being a good team.
Look at us. Look at us. You're quite the problem solver. All right. This is, as I said, this is a story that we have been covering since we started doing this show. We are going to continue to cover this story. So any updates that we give on this story, we obviously are going to relay to you. It's a story that I think is important to both Amy and I, and that's why we wanted to devote time to it. There is another story that Amy, I get the vibe you really don't want to talk about it, but this is a necessary evil. And that is
Are
one
we
of the
talking about it now, or are we having our buffer story first?
Do you want to go? Do you need a buffer? Do you need a buffer, or should we just rip off the Band-Aid now?
Can we just talk really quickly about how Chan-Ho Park, who was the first Korean MLB player, threw the first pitch in the games this weekend or this weekend in Seoul, Korea? Just devote maybe 2 minutes before we rip off the Band-Aid.
Absolutely. I was trying to save that for the end to try to cheer you up, so we wouldn't end on such a negative note, because I know you're a very positive person.
Okay, we can do whatever.
You are the master of the Care Bear stare. So let's talk about For those of you listening on the audio portion, she just did a Care Bear stare. So, um, real quick, I know you've mentioned it before, but for any new listeners, which Care Bear would you be?
I'd probably be Cheer Bear. I know which one you would be. You're saved in my phone with that picture.
Yes, the Taco Bear. Very few people. I think he was part of the Care Bear cousins, even though he was a Care Bear. So he just got deleted from a lot of episodes. There was a Care Bear. There was a brown Care Bear that had tacos on his tummy. I don't know why Taco Care Bear didn't blow up. He would
Well,
blow up now.
I didn't know that Taco Bear was an option because I might have added that to my Cheer Bear tummy bear picture. But here we are.
Absolutely. But you were saying before I so rudely interrupted about Janho.
Well, so just he made his debut with the Dodgers when he was 20 years old, as many know, in 1994, actually the day before my birthday. And so just there were a couple things that came out. There were a lot of people that were honoring him, not only with that first pitch in game one that kicked off the season, but as a pitcher who pitched in parts of 17 years in the majors. There were just some cool quotes that came out of one of the stories in The Athletic. And there was they were talking about him appreciating his milestones, not only opening the door for all the Korean players that we see now, but how hard it was to be that first one. And we hear that, with Jackie Robinson, breaking the color barrier in the MLB, or even Fernando Valenzuela when he brought the Latinos back into the stadium. And just there was a moment where he had pitched and I guess he had let 2 runs come in, and Tommy Lasorda handed him the ball at the end of the game, and he didn't know why he was being given the ball. And through an interpreter, they let him know that was his first strikeout ball. And so that's not something that he was aware of, that, we kept and memorialized those things. So his quote in the article was, "It's all meaningful for me since then. So every new ball or home run ball, base hit ball, all were firsts, right? So I started collecting the balls. That's all in a museum in my hometown in Korea." But what struck me was those were all firsts. He was the first Korean player. So every time he did, that first strikeout, that first home run, whatever, like those are pretty important firsts that I think we forget about when we have this international gaze on the game. And so I just wanted to highlight that.
He also is the first person to do a Chuck Norris spinning kick on another player. For those of you who are not, and I don't think you're familiar with this, Amy, or are you?
Bringing the facts. This is why we needed to talk about this. Please proceed.
Whenever anybody mentions Chan Ho Park, I always think about this. Have you seen this video? Do you know
I
what
think
video
I
I'm talking
saw
about?
something, but I didn't know the context. So please tell me a story.
So the Dodgers are playing the Angels. It's story time, everybody. It's story time with Juan. The Dodgers are playing the Angels, and Tim Belcher, a pitcher, is at the plate. And Chan Ho is pitching to him, and Tim Belcher is a little upset with a pitch that Chan Ho, and he basically charges the mound at Chan Ho. And I'm sure, I don't remember if Chan Ho was actually asked this, if that was the first time anybody had ever charged the mound on him. But you could tell because Chan Ho served time in the Korean military, and I think it's an obligation, actually. You have to serve in the military before you can even go to continue your professional career in sports. So I don't think Tim Belcher knew what he was meant. Tim Belcher, a former Dodger, played a very significant role in the 1988 World Series championship. But Belcher charges the mound, and most times what do we see? Like the pitcher throws down the glove, he clearly doesn't want to fight, or other people come in
People
and break it up.
miss. Sometimes they connect, but it's usually like a sloppy, like, like maybe a slap, but
Yeah.
not a slap, or a punch I wish I would have landed, but didn't really land.
Yeah, it's not very coordinated. If you're Robin Ventura, you get an atomic noogie from Nolan Ryan. So I think Tim Belcher was probably expecting something like that, but no. Chan Ho did a spinning kick on him. Now, he didn't hit Belcher clean. I'm going to send you the video later on so you can see it. But that's whenever I see Chan Ho Park, that's what I always see, where it was just like, now, I don't know if that is karate. I don't know if that is kung fu. I don't know which martial art it was. But the fact that Chan Ho was obviously fearing for his life, and he resorted to his martial arts training to defend himself. That to me probably stands as a greater memory than anything he ever did in the field. And if anybody wants a more perfect example of why Amy and I are so different and why this show works so well, is there's Amy's memory of Chan Ho Park and how beautifully she laid it out about first, and this beautiful story about Tommy Lasorda giving her the ball. While I'm just like, dude, Chan Ho went Bloodsport on Tim Belcher, and it was awesome. I know I gave a Chuck Norris reference, and I totally aged myself, because if we have young kids on here listening or watching, they're probably like, "Who the hell is Chuck Norris?" Maybe I should have
Hey,
said Sean.
at least they have Google now. They don't have to go pick up an encyclopedia to go try to figure it out.
That's right. So yeah, Bloodsport, kids, check it out. And in the words of David Watsutako, not only is this a Dodger podcast, but this is a movie podcast. So if you're scoring at home, first movie reference in this episode, yes, Bloodsport. Who had that on their bingo card? But yeah, I mean, you saw the pictures of that special jersey they had made for him, where he had the half Dodgers, half Padres. Now, for me, I wish he would have worn, and I understand you just can't do this. I wish he would have just worn his Dodger jersey, because I feel his time with the Dodgers was more impactful
But
than
isn't
his time.
he's actually working in the front office with the Padres though. So
Why do you bring logic into this? Why do you have to like
so I
destroy my
think
argument?
they might frown on that a little bit. Current employer.
But there was also a great moment with him and Hyunjin Ryu. Like it was great to see Ryu there. I totally forgot about Hyunjin Ryu, and Dave Roberts was so. In terms, I forgot. Like, I didn't expect him to be at the game. I didn't
Oh,
think he was going to
and
be
see,
at the game.
I'd read a bunch of stuff that he was going to be there, and I think one of my favorite moments was being in the stadium when he hit his first home run, and I just
When he went
seeing
Babe
him
Ryu,
Babe Ruth.
but it was so great because he had come so close. And I remember Joe
Mhm.
Davis always saying, he's going to hit one. He's going to hit one this year. I know.
The stadium lost it. And I think I wasn't living down here yet at the time. I hadn't moved back home. So I was still like, I don't know. I wouldn't call it commuting from Northern California, but I would come down multiple times a year. That was one of the games that I picked.
And there you have it. So yeah, no, I think I'm glad you brought that. It's it's a beautiful Care Bear moment there, Amy. And this is again, you
Now I need
definitely
to go look up Bloodsport. So
you have not seen Bloodsport. Wow.
I don't think I
See,
have,
see,
honestly.
this is again why I am not a movie snob, and I will continue to fight the slanderer on being called a film elitist. I just referenced Bloodsport. Anybody who watches Bloodsport will never accuse that movie of being in the pantheon. I am not a film snob, and I am not a film elitist.
I love
Um,
how personally you are taking this.
but I think we have our second episode of Amy's Balcony coming up pretty soon, segment
No.
as Amy
Okay.
reviews Bloodsport, and that'll
Okay.
be awesome.
All right,
But
I'll look into it.
make sure you watch the Jean-Claude Van Damme version, because I don't know if this is true or not. There were rumors they were going to remake it, so I don't know if they ended up remaking it, but make sure you watch the Jean-Claude Van Damme version, because that's the one that I'm referring to.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll look. I know I've seen a bunch of his movies. They all blend together because they're pretty much the same thing, but
I love it when we do Amy's Balcony and she's going to go, you know what? I realized I have already seen this movie. I
I
just
may
didn't know
have.
it was called Bloodsport. Here's the true test. If I say Kumite to you, does it mean anything to you?
No.
Then I
I
don't
don't
think
think
you've seen
so.
Bloodsport. I don't think you've seen Bloodsport.
I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted.
Oh, I can't wait for another segment of Amy's Balcony. So I think that's a perfect transition from Bloodsport to
Build me
another Bloodsport.
up to break me down.
So we talked about this in the last episode. We're fully aware of the Shohei gambling story. So we're going to spend time in talking about it now. So of course the bombshell broke that it was when we first heard the news that Shohei's interpreter Ippei Mizuhara, is that the correct pronunciation, Amy?
I believe so. Yeah.
That had a gambling debt of 4.5 million. And he had sat down with ESPN to do a 90-minute interview. And during this 90-minute interview is when he told ESPN that he had a $4.5 million debt and that Shohei covered that debt. So Shohei was aware that he was giving 4.5 million to pay an illegal gambling debt. Then moments later, well, I don't want to say moments later, but shortly time after that, because that gets reported, and then we see them actually playing the game, and he's in the dugout, and Shohei's hanging out with them, and they seem to be having, a pretty good, there doesn't seem to be any cold distance between them. It doesn't seem like there's tension or anything like that. Then all of a sudden it comes out that Shohei's lawyers are saying that Ippei stole $4.5 million to pay this gambling debt from Shohei. And then the story comes out that Ippei addressed the clubhouse after the game to tell them about this story. So that's how we first heard this story, and that Shohei had not heard anything about this. Amy, when you first heard the news, what was your reaction?
Honestly, because not much had come out other than Ippei had been terminated from the Dodgers' employment. Not much. I when it comes to non-baseball stories, I don't like to jump to conclusions, not saying that anybody has, but for me, I'd rather see how the story develops and then see, okay, what are the facts that we're going with. So when it initially broke, it was like, huh, that's not great. Let's see what happens. So at that point, I really didn't have an opinion. Um, I don't know. How did you feel when you saw that it had come out?
Well, that to me, and this is where it gets really hard because you want to focus on the facts. What do you know? Because with this type of story, it is very easy to go into speculation. And that's immediately, I think, what everybody went into. And this is why I remember when the story broke, I sent it to Amy and I said, should we record? And this was very smart on Amy's part, where Amy had said to me, she's like, Juan, this is a developing story. Let's wait. Let's wait and see because the story had changed so rapidly. And that's what the issue is, Amy, is the change in the story. If Ippei would have come out, or if Shohei even would have come out and said, look, my friend Ippei has a gambling problem. I wanted to help him out in this situation. I offered to cover his debt, and I'm offered to get him help so he can deal with his gambling problem. The issue at hand is that's not what happened. So the first thing we hear is that Shohei knew about this. Shohei willingly gave the money. And then what we hear is Shohei's lawyers saying, no, 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 no. Shohei's a victim here of massive theft. The fact that that story changed and it changed so quickly, I think that's what freaked everyone out, and that's where the speculation came in, and this is where the speculation comes in that no, Shohei knew about this, and that Shohei's the one that has the gambling problem, and that eBay is taking the fall. That to me, there's nothing that proves that theory. Now, that may eventually end up being true because I think this is a story that's going to go on for a while. But at this time, that narrative that is being put out that Shohei knew that this is Shohei's gambling debt, we can't say that for sure. So I really want to focus in terms of what we know. This is what we know for sure. So I think we have to. So that's how it starts, and I think this is where this is the extent of people's knowledge on this story. But I want to go a little further back in terms of the genesis of this investigation, where Ippei gets dragged into this story. And that is a character by the name of Matthew Boyer. And it was funny because the way people were first pronouncing it, they were pronouncing it Bauer. And so when I heard it, I was like, oh my, you're kidding me. The guy's name is Bauer. I was just like, who's writing this script? Well, Matthew Bauer Bayer, and you know what? Maybe it is pronounced Boyer. Now that I think about it, I need to get a correction on that. He's from Orange County, but he's basically a bookie. And so the feds were investigating an illegal gambling ring that was taking place here in California. And you know who was linked to this illegal gambling ring a few months ago, Amy?
Tell me.
Yasiel Puig.
Hmm.
Yasiel Puig was attached to this gambling ring, but Yasiel Puig doesn't play in Major League Baseball. So people just kind of gave the reaction that Amy gave, where it was just like, okay, whatever. So Yasiel Puig, it's almost like it's expected that, of course, Yasiel Puig is a part of this, right? So the federal agents raided Bayer. Now I want to call him Bauer, or raided this bookie's house. He lives in San Juan Capistrano, and this raid took place last year. Okay. Now, at that time, well, I don't know if it was at that time, but later on, Bauer did deny that he had any contact with Shohei. So he never took any bets from Shohei Ohtani. This is coming from Bauer. He's saying he had no contact. So again, right there, there's no proof that Shohei was directly making the bets. Here are the concerns, and this is what it all comes down to, Amy. Now, we have to also take into account that when this was happening, Shohei was playing for the Angels down in Orange County, right? So this is what we're going to break it down as simple as it is. If Ippei is the one who made the bets, and they can prove that Ippei is the one who made the bets, and that Shohei didn't know anything about it, then I don't know if they can do anything to Shohei. But if they have proof that Shohei is the one that's making the bets, here's the problem. This is a violation of the league policy when it comes to gambling, because you can't gamble on any other sport other than baseball. And if it turns out that there is evidence that he did gamble in baseball, then that's even worse. And this is all going to go ahead and fall in Manfred's lap, which I think probably doesn't give people much confidence in. So that's what we know so far. Now, here's the other piece of evidence that is up for debate that has not been confirmed. But I think this was what also triggered the LA Times story and triggered the ESPN story. And that there are 2 wire transfers of $500,000 directly to this bookie, and it has Shohei Ohtani's name on it. Now, Amy, I don't know what your financial situation is if you make wire transfers a lot. I made a wire transfer maybe about last year. The amount of verification that goes through, and this was, and it was like $15,000 that I was wiring. Okay. We're talking about $1 million, 2 wire transfers of $500,000. That's the question that I think everyone has. And that is, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that you did not know that $1 million was being transferred out of your account? Now, this could be true, because if I'm as wealthy as it was just reported, I think he made $65 million in just endorsements this year. If you're Scrooge McDuck and you have so much money that you can't even notice $1 million missing from your account, then good for you. But this is all stuff that, those are the facts. That's what so right now, what we can say.
That's been what's reported.
Or reported, excuse me. Thank you for that correction. That's what's been reported. So we don't know. We still don't have conclusive proof that Shohei made these bets. For all we know, Shohei just went ahead and said, I'm going to help my friend. He's known Ippei since they were back playing in Japan, when Shohei was playing in Japan. He has a very close relationship. And this is where the cynicism comes in, Amy. This is where everyone sits there and goes, if you're that close to that guy, how did you not know that this was happening? How did you not know about gambling? That's what I have so far. Do you want to add anything to this, Amy?
No, I'm more of the, especially with something of this magnitude, like I just want to wait and see. Um, I, as a fan, so taking off all of my other hats right now, just as a fan of the game, like watching this play out and all the like insinuations, the speculation on social media, when for me, I just want to be celebrating that it's the opening series, we have baseball back. Like until they have something concrete, I'm taking a step back from it. I'm happy that we're reporting the facts as we know them, just so to get the information out there. But beyond that, I just kind of want to wait and see how it's going to unravel. I feel really bad for Shohei. I think we were talking about interpreters and whatnot at the end of the last episode, and you know, when you're relying on an interpreter, you need to trust them. You are reliant on them for your communication, for your interaction with your teammates, and so to lose somebody that was that conduit for him, I feel really bad that this is happening, especially as the season is getting started. He doesn't need the distraction. The Dodgers don't need the distraction. And I'm sure that even though he's going to get a new interpreter, it's got to be a little bit isolating. We already know what a private person that he is. So I don't really, honestly, I like, social media kind of made me feel icky yesterday. So I'm kind of in a wait and see stance on it.
And one of the things I do want to clarify too is the mentioning of Matthew Boyer. That is the guy who Ippei allegedly made the bets through. That's the bookie. So that's the tie-in there. That's how Ippei's name came up in the story. A couple of things that I do find interesting about this is ESPN sat with Ippei for 90 minutes. And then the LA Times was the one that started breaking this news. And then ESPN came out with what they were reporting. So the fact that you have two separate news entities were looking into this, there was obviously something there that they need to pursue. Now, I think all this does, as to Amy's point, all this does is just create more questions. Now, the most recent update at the time of this recording is that it seems like Otani's representation is trying to explain why there was the changing storyline, and that to me is the big issue right now. Is wait, you guys are saying this, but now you're saying this. Why the change? So this is the update. As Otani handlers tried to determine what happened, they initially relied slowly on Mizuhara, who continued to translate for Otani. After Wednesday's season opening game in South Korea, Dodgers officials called a clubhouse meeting and told players a negative story was coming later in the day. A team official said, and Mitsuharu apologized, saying he had a gambling addiction. It was then the official said that Otani understood for the first time what was happening and began asking questions. So, for everyone that was saying, why was Otani so chummy with Ippei during the game? And this is like, of course, the cynicism of society comes in, that nobody believes that Shohei is just discovering this. And you mentioned this, Amy, and I think this is something that I think we lose sight of, is if all this needed to be translated to Shohei, I doesn't that realistically believe he might not know? Like, it's like, hey, bro, this guy. Now, there was a piece that Dylan Hernandez wrote in the LA Times that I thought was really good. And that was a piece that said basically that Otani lives a very sheltered life. And but one aspect of being sheltered is that he has everybody control stuff for him. Now, when you have that, I'm poor, so I never have to deal with that amount of wealth. But when you just go, okay, he handles my money, and we've heard this story so many times of people getting ripped off, right? And it's like, no, you can't do that. You have to be involved in your money. And I get it. He probably trusted Ippei. If this is all true, he trusted Ippei. And if he gave Ippei control of having access to his money, and he was just relying on Ippei telling him, "Hey, man, oh, this is for this." And look, I it's in terms of the changing of the stories, that's what's still going to be up for debate, because if something else, if something else comes out, but I think this is going to be a huge eye-opening experience for Shohei, because again, the only thing that matters here is if they can prove that he knowingly made this payment, because we're talking about a crime here. This isn't anything like, this is a crime. And now the issue is going to be, when does Major League Baseball step in to do their investigation?
I mean, I guess we will find out as the season goes on. I mean, this is obviously a developing story. There's a lot of people involved. As you can see, it's all across social media, all across the different news outlets. So I'm sure we'll be hearing more of it for days and days, and probably into the months.
One thing I do want to get your opinion on, Amy, is, and this came to my mind, in 2021 and 2022, the Dodger fans had to deal with Trevor Bauer. In 2023, they had to deal with Julio Urias. In 2024, now we got to deal with this. There was a comment I saw on social media and be like, can I just have a normal Dodger season? And I know there's a lot of fans who sit there and go, I don't care what happens off the field. I just want to focus on what's happening in the field. Do the Dodgers have a problem here that this is happening repeatedly? Because, and I don't want to say this is taking the player off the hook, because Bauer did what he did, Urias did what they did, and now Ohtani could still be a victim here. So, but if players are putting themselves in these positions,
You mean they're humans?
Are Dodgers, is the organization, or let's take it even to a more, is my employer responsible for what I do on my own time?
I mean, I don't know. I guess that's where the MLB, like the commissioner, will come in and have a say about it. But it's not just the Dodgers. Like, other teams, they're dealing with like the Wander Franco stuff. Like, there are other people are just people, and so this is going to happen from time to time.
I did, because I do believe that the Dodgers were blindsided by this whole gambling thing, because I think also part of the change in the storyline is, I think the Dodgers got involved. Once the Dodgers caught wind of what was happening here, because I don't think anybody would have allowed, who had any experience in PR, would have allowed Ippei to go out there and say, oh, by the way, Ohtani knew that this money was to pay back illegal gambling debts. I don't
Directly employ Ippei, which is why they are the ones who let him go.
And so the law firm now that is representing Ohtani is a law firm that represents famous actors like Johnny Depp, who recently had legal problems. I feel like they are more experienced. And like I said, we don't know yet. And that's why we need to wait for confirmation here. But according from what the lawyers are saying, what they saw, and they have asked the authorities to investigate this, is that there was theft involved in here. And if that is proven, then I think Ohtani's off the hook. Now the issue at hand, though, is this going to follow him? Because we've seen how it follows other players.
And I think that's where, for me, like, I'm just taking a step back, because I would like to see the facts presented, like more of the story versus what we've gotten in the last 24 hours. Just before, I sound off on something, just because I like to have the bigger picture of it. So I appreciate that we are giving what has been stated in the news now, but as far as speculation, I have nothing at this point. Yeah.
And this is a guy who is like extremely private. After this, I mean, I can't see how anybody else wouldn't take this as a violation or betrayal of trust. I think he's going to shut down even more. I know there were reports that Dodgers PR was at his locker in the clubhouse. They were told he would not be speaking. So I think you're going to see more of that. You and I we were at Dodger Fest. We saw how much security was around him. you couldn't get to him. I did think it was interesting, and we've talked this about this with Shohei, and that is the need to get to Shohei, and you can't get to Shohei, and now it spills over to other players. And I know Juan Toribio had brought this up once, where it's like when someone refuses to talk, you are now going to go somewhere else to try to get information. So
That's a
will
choice, though. That is a choice.
that is true, because if you go to, and I know like Walker Bueller had said, it's like, yeah, you want to talk to me, you ask me 2 questions about me, and then you ask me about 6 of Ohtani. I can see how Dodger players are going to be. I mean, well, Dave Roberts already, that's who I really feel bad for, is Dave Roberts. Because again, Dave Roberts, and this is what sucks for me, I think, for Dave, because Dave goes out there and he answers these questions that are being asked, and it's because Ohtani doesn't come out and address it. So they're going to ask Dave, right? And I'm sure Dave realizes this is part of the job. I think he handled the Julio Urias situation very well. I think he handled the Trevor Bauer situation well, where it's just like, what do you guys want me to tell you? It's like, I'll tell you as much as I can tell you, but these matters are all under investigation. I mean, we still don't even have like a definitive decision from Major League Baseball on Julio Urias, right? So it's sad to say, but I think Roberts has experience now dealing with these situations. But if this ends up being a distraction the whole season for them, is this going to be used as an excuse for if the Dodgers don't win the World Series, it was because of the Shohei thing? And this is Roberts' last year, and it ends up costing Roberts' job. And it's just like, I'm going to lose my job because of things that were just completely out of my control. I know life is not fair, but that's who I feel bad for, is Dave Roberts.
Well, and that's why for me, like, I don't even want to go down this road of like, what if, what, like, because for me, it's like, it's a moot point until we have more information. Is it going to be unfortunate for Dave Roberts? Absolutely. But he is good at saying, like, what, I have no comment. And it's not, he doesn't have a comment. And the media can go to other players and ask questions, but if they don't have answers, they're not going to answer it either. So until we get that information, at this point, it is all speculation, and there's nothing we can do with that. So I think that's where it's a hard place, because people want information, they want to know what's going on. But at this point, there's not a lot out there, and the people who do have it are probably being told not to say anything for good reason. And so until more of that breaks, we're all just in a holding pattern. And you're right, it is going to impact the season, but we have to do our best to just kind of focus on the game and focus on what we can control.
Yeah, because I think firing Ippei is not going to make this story go away. This story, I think, is going to be a story that it might even go more than a year, because I mean, the feds are involved in this. So in terms of how it impacts, I don't think we've seen a player have to deal with something like this and still play. And I could be wrong, but it comes to mind for me was when Kobe was going through the Colorado incident, and he was still playing games, and it somehow did not impact his play. He still was out there doing his job. And I know that Shohei is a unicorn, and I mean, he hit a couple of balls the other day. He still, and from what Dave Roberts said, there was no plan not to sit him. He was going to play game 2 regardless of this news breaking. So it's something to continue to keep an eye on. We'll see what happens. I think we're going to try to just focus on the baseball side of how this story impacts. But as of right now,
Trust me, there will be plenty of people talking about it.
there was plenty. I know there was a lot of jokes. There was a lot of memes out there. But again, that is all speculation. All we know for right now is what Ippei, really, all we know is what Ippei has told us, because other than that, nothing else. And in terms of the investigation to a gambling ring in California, and that investigation has been going on for months. I want to leave with this last thing. Um, one of the things that I do find interesting is a lot of these gambling companies are partners of these sports leagues. So whatever comes out of this, i- gambling has been an issue in sports way back before this. I think Amy even referenced it at one time with the Black Sox scandal. Okay, this is not new to Major League Baseball. You have Pete Rose, gambling. I mean, there's that belief, this myth that Michael Jordan retired because he had a huge gambling debt, and that's why he retired. That was his punishment, and then he came back. Look, there's no way you
Again,
can prove
more
that.
more speculation.
Yeah. Right. So this is not anything new, but I do feel that it's interesting that Major League Baseball and the rest of these sports leagues partner with these gambling companies. So if something comes out of this, or anybody who has a gambling problem and says, I have a gambling problem, and then Major League Baseball comes out and says, well, we understand, we want to get you help. It's like, but do you? Because you are partnering with what is could be well, not could be, is a real issue because of the integrity. Not only, I know I've heard the expression before that it's a victimless crime. Well, say that to the families that are destroyed because of people who have gambling addictions. Um, but that's something that I'm curious if they will revisit these partnerships, because I know they're looking to. I think they were actually in the future at the Warriors' new arena, they're going to build in stuff where you can actually bet while the game is going on. So that it's a slippery slope.
What an episode.
All right. So now, see, we should have saved the Chan Ho Park story for now, because then we could have
Um,
ended with Bloodsport. We could have ended with
well, we
Bloodsport.
could have ended with Bloodsport. We will end with this. So a couple episodes, one had shared the information that the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes were going to be Las Chaquetas for 3 games, and their hats did go on sale. I think it was 2 days ago, and they sold out within hours. So kudos to them. Great marketing. Those hats were hot. They sold out within maybe even like an hour, hour and a half, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I know when you ordered yours and then you started sending me screenshots of these were the only sizes left. It was like, oh, glad I got mine early. But yeah, I want to say but look, like people that collect hats, that's like a serious thing. There is a store in Downey that I will sometimes go to get hats, and I show up and there is a line down the sidewalk, and it's like people are, oh yeah, dude, they're releasing this new hat. Like, collectors take this shit seriously. But there was
Colonel
one
swears by that store in Downey. He loves that place. I
there
have
was
not
a
gone yet because my wallet will just be nothing left in it.
they do have a lot, they have some good stuff there. I got my Mexico, the third uniform one, the rosa bill with the powder blue. I got that hat there because that was the only place I could find it. And they did like 3 drops of it. Like, they ran out immediately, and they were like, "Oh, we usually announce on Instagram when we're gonna make it available." So we did that, and then uh I missed it both times. Finally, the third time they got a shipment, I was able to get it. But I think by then everybody already had it, so that's why I didn't have as much competition. But there was another minor league baseball team that you liked their name, right?
I like the Flying Chanclas, but they're a Padres affiliate, and so I can't in good conscience, I can't do it. But there's a page, if you go to the MILB store, there's a Copa La Diversión, a teams page, and there are so many cool teams. There's the Pointy Boots of Amarillo. I think there's like mariachis, the paletas. Like, they have so many creative names. Like, if you are looking for a new great hat, check out some of these names. The Chicharrones de Colombia. Like, there's so many good ones. Like, good job to these teams for the diversity and everything that they're bringing. The piñatas. They've got the El Paso Margaritas. Like there's a lot of good ones out there. So
I'm a big fan of the peces dorados. Did you see the peces dorados?
no.
It's a fish with a baseball hat, but he has like a Day of the Dead face on it. Yeah,
Oh,
some of
that's
the
awesome. The manzanas, the luchadores de Fort Wayne.
the pointy boots. I just saw the pointy boots logo. That is hilarious. You're
There
right.
are so many good ones. So like if you're looking for a new hat, and especially because the chaquetas are sold out, there's a lot of good ones. There's the cucuys, they the San Bernardino. So there's a lot of good ones out there.
So we hope that this is so we don't end the episode in such a downer. We hope this has cheered you out. So go and get go get avocados luchadores, the down east. Go check out that hat. I'm telling you,
There's a
there's some great.
micheladas for Reno, Reno.
The lowriders de Fresno. That one is. Look, I'm telling you, I'm just going down this list. This is just like, this is
The
hilarious.
churros de San Jose. That makes me
They even have.
hungry.
Yeah, this is definitely something you should definitely check out. Go support your minor league. If you live near a minor league baseball team, support them, man, because they're doing what they can to go ahead and survive in these situations. Anyway, any last words before we wrap things up, Amy?
Go get a minor league hat. It'll make you feel better.
So let's it's a business just to end the show here. If you're listening to us on the audio version of this podcast, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Make sure you rate us, write us a review. You can also, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Hit that notification button, give us a thumbs up, leave us some comments. Make sure you're following us on social media on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, Threads, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. She is Amy Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. You have been listening or watching another episode of Baseball Shangri-La. Amy, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye, people.